Reverse sweep is back, and we have a lot to talk about because the first week of stage 2 is over. Some surprise reverse sweeps, some surprise 3-0s, and maybe something going about as expected if you're Atlanta FaZe. I'm your host, Katie Bedford, and let's take a look at the week 1 stage 2 standings, how everything played out. Now, starting it off, Atlanta, no surprise, taking a 3-1 victory over Subliners, and Seattle, however, perhaps a little more surprising, winning 3-1 over Florida Mutineers. Day 2, Thieves going the distance, game 5 to a round 11 with Toronto that they managed to pull out for the win, and Paris sweeping Minnesota. Day 3, Optic, Florida, and Dallas coming out on top. Florida handing that second sweep to Minnesota, and Dallas and Optic not having too much trouble, although Dallas did go around 11 game 5 with Seattle after what seemed to be a bit of a sloppy collapse during the control. Day 4, London, their first ever series win, and they do it in a sweep fashion, taking out Gorillas 3-0. Atlanta, another sweep for them over Toronto, and Subliners going game 5 and getting the reverse sweep over LA Thieves. That rounds it out for those stage 2 week 1 outcomes, and take a look at the standings now. FaZe, no surprise, sitting on top of Group A. Optic and Dallas tied there for 1 and 2 at 1-0 records in Group B, and everyone falling underneath them. Seattle, maybe you don't expect to see them in third there for Group B, but that is where they will sit. And how does it play out for the overall 2021 standings? Well, take a look. Those teams 9 through 12, well, they are under the playoff cutoff. Not where you want to be if you want to have a chance in the long running for the season. Paris and Florida just managing to scrape by in those 7th and 8th positions. So definitely some shifting, maybe some unexpected outcomes from the week. And I'd love to bring in now Pacman and Enable, our wonderful analysts, to go through everything. We've got to, of course, touch on Atlanta FaZe to start, guys. I don't know how much there is to say, but they continue to look dominant. They continue to look really, really solid. Enable, when you saw them, do you see any lessening in their dominance considering kind of the shifts and maybe a little bit of the meta going into stage 2?
Honestly, Katie, no. I mean, they are they're too good right now. They're too good. I'm pretty sure I saw their analyst tweet out that they broke the record for the longest win streak in the CDL. And there's just everyone is playing fantastic on their team. RCDs, I think, has stepped up a lot since we talked about him last, and it's been, I want to say it's been huge, but I mean, they didn't lose when he wasn't playing too hot anyways, but now they just look even tougher to beat. They just have no weaknesses. That's what we keep saying, but they just don't.
It's kind of scary, right? We talked about it before. There should have been sort of luxury tax or something that they broke forming this team.
Who let the team form?
It's so predictable, but that doesn't take away from their accomplishments. They're amazing. I mean, I think they lost the search and destroy finally or whatever to New York.
Yeah, their second ever. Yep.
Their second search and destroy of the whole CDL, which is still ridiculous, and they still won 3-1. I mean, they're just really strong. There's every single mode.
You beat them in SD, you're like, oh, let's go, finally. We did it, and then you just lose every respawn. You're like, oh fuck.
Yeah, now they're 12 and 2. Oh no. So that's the thing, right? You go up against someone like Atlanta, maybe you can hope you can take away that first hard point, because if you don't, you're probably going to lose. But it doesn't even matter for FaZe. It seems like no matter what happens to them, they get comfortable wins. We haven't seen a dicey win for them, I think, maybe ever.
I think the only one was Optic.
Yeah, but Optic, I think, maybe
blew them out in game 5.
Yeah.
So.
Well, right, yeah, they go the distance, and then it gets to that S&D, and then it's just on cruise control for them. But FaZe still looking as impeccable as ever. But let's talk about Thieves. So Thieves went 1-1 on the week, and I believe, was it game 5 for both of them? So they won 3-2 against Toronto, and then they ended up getting reverse swept as well. So that game 5 that they won goes round 11. So they barely clutch it up, and then that next one they end up getting reverse swept. So Pacman, I'll give Ian a bit of a breather for this one. I'll start with Pacman.
Thank you.
What do you think about Thieves right now? Because they seem a little hit or miss.
I mean, they did just switch roles. We talked about that before, maybe giving it a try. And Kenny's running a sub now, and Tim's running an AR. And I think that maybe we should give them a little bit of time. I do think that they showed a little bit of promise, right? I mean, even though they got reverse swept by New York, they did go up. They were looking strong. I believe I think Ian even might have tweeted that they're starting to come together right before they got smoked.
Yeah. That
So
was
they were
me.
looking
That
fun.
was me.
I mean, even though that one against Toronto went game 5, round 11, Toronto's should be a decent team. And then Inside also had like a ridiculous map, right? That doesn't normally happen, and they still won. So I'm gonna give LA Thieves LA Thieves a little bit of a breather on this one. 2 game 5s, 2 good teams that they played. Give them a little bit of time with their new roles. Everyone is saying how the submachine guns play way different in matches as opposed to scrims because people are trying a little harder. They're playing a little slower. Give Kenny a little bit of time to adjust, and then we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the way that I was looking at it is that they made this role swap, and they played absolutely horrible versus Toronto, right? But they were still able to clutch up and win.
Right.
Like, which even though you don't want to play bad, you love to see that you could beat a solid team, while you are playing at your absolute worst. You're just able to clutch up and win those series. And then versus New York, they looked really good. Like, they started out 2-0. That's when I made the tweet. And then I actually didn't go watch the last 3 maps because I had to do stuff. And then that's when I got all the notifications. People were like, that didn't age well. So they got reverse swept. But it's like, it seemed like their potential was starting to show. Like I said, they got, even though it was a close win around 11, they got that win versus Toronto. And the first 2 maps of the New York series, they looked great. And I think they kind of threw away the control. I mean, you can't let that happen. I think that was crucial for them. If they would have won that Subliner series in a 3-0, 3-1 fashion, I would have been super confident. But after how poorly they played versus Toronto and then choking like that, I don't know. It's they're not in the best spot, Katie. That's I'll put it like that. That's the nicest way I can put it. They're not in the best spot right now.
How much time do we give them, though?
Some glimmers of hope, but not enough. As Pacman's saying, how much time do you give them before you maybe?
I mean, you have to give if you're gonna do this role swap, okay? You have to give Ken a little bit of time. You can't be instant because it is a completely different play style. Even though he's played that sort of play style in the past, it's a different game. But I also just don't know if the role swap is going to be effective. Like, I think it goes back to what we've talked about, John, where they might just need to have a new dynamic and make a roster change somehow, right? Like, just to switch up the vibes, bring in someone new environment. Because we know those players and their attitudes, their personalities together. Yeah, we do. You can't just keep letting that go. Because that is something that they won't improve on unless they start dominating. Yeah, it's just going to keep getting worse. Like
we talked about it before. They're the team that they actually need to dominate.
They need to
coexist properly. Like, they just need to, and they're not.
So, like, I think if they would have beat New York, ended this first week of the stage 2-0, especially beating New York if they would have did it 3-0, 3-1, because New York is like the other top team in their pool or in their state or group. Besides FaZe, which obviously they're not fucking with. So, like, that would have been a nice confidence booster, and moving forward, maybe giving them some momentum. But, yeah, I don't know. I just think it's just going to keep getting worse at this point.
Essentially, New York's a team that they need to beat, right? These other teams below them, they're supposed to beat. And if they beat them, let's be honest, Austin really doesn't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's like, yeah, okay.
You did what you were supposed to do.
No, we beat the lower team. So what? You're supposed to beat New York. They want to beat FaZe, like, be up there and competing with them. Like you said, I don't think that's going to happen when they play FaZe. FaZe is too strong, but that's the point. That's the point they're trying to get to, and they're not there yet. Not even close.
Well, potentially a roster change in the mix for them. We'll have to wait and see. But a team they did play and they came out on top that brought in a roster change was Toronto. Toronto Ultra benched Methodz and brought in Insight, and Insight, a very good showing for him in that Thieves series they had. I think he was 2 kills away from the all-time S&D kill record, I think, in CDL. Shoot. He had a lot of kills. He had a really, really great game. But Toronto, okay, so they do fall to Thieves, and maybe they don't have the best showing that they would hope for at the beginning of the stage. They went 0-2, but it seems like Insight is at least doing well for them. Enable, how do you look at that? Yes, you're 0-2, but Insight's doing well?
I I mean, it just right now, Insight does look solid. But for me, I didn't agree with the initial benching of Zinni. And it looks like a lateral move. Like I've seen people talk about it on Twitter, where it's like Marky B's trying to just create an all European team, and like people were gassing Inside up because he played well versus the Thieves, and they were like, oh yeah, like y'all don't know what you're talking about. Like Insight's just a beast. He's better than Zinni. It's like, well, you still went 0-2, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
I don't think that. I think that if they were going to make a move, they should have benched someone else for Insight. Maybe if they wanted to bring in more firepower. So they just look the same. They look average to me. I mean, 0-2, they might have more potential with Insight, maybe, but I don't really see them getting any better. I don't think Insight's just going to be a superstar and change Toronto into a top team.
No, I mean, Zinni was the highest rated player in every single mode.
Right.
So
he was playing good.
So, I mean, let's not. This is not to say Insight's bad, because I feel like when you say one thing, everyone takes it like as an insult. You gotta be really careful nowadays.
Right.
People are a little bit emotional. Insight is fine. He's good. He came in, had a really good series. He had 18 in the S&D, but they lost. Like, I mean, what did that move really accomplish? I think that both things could be true. I do think that Mark Yu was trying to make an all-European team. How Toronto got to this point with this roster, beyond me, if you look at how they started. Right. That does not mean that Insight's not also talented. Both those things can be true. It does feel like Ian said, like a lateral move. When you look at Toronto, they didn't get worse dropping Zinni, I don't think, even though Zinni was their highest rated player, but they definitely didn't get better. The guy had a really good map. Yeah. Really, that's what we're talking about. His stats across the board were, for a main AR, what they're supposed to look like, but then he had a really good map. Zinni also had a really good map the other day. He 1v4'd on Moscow, and everyone's going crazy, right? Like, but people forget these little moments because in the grand scheme, they don't really matter. All that matters is how good the team really is as a unit, and the team's okay. Like, it didn't really accomplish much. You didn't pick up a superstar. You picked up another solid player, but Zinni was already that. If there was turmoil within the team that we don't know about, maybe
maybe it was a vibe issue.
I never heard anything like that at all. I never heard that from anyone that's team with Zinni before. I don't think he's the person that causes those kind of issues.
I would like to.
I don't really know.
I would like to know, like, the reasoning. I know it's never going to come out specifically, but like, what was the reasoning? Was it an internal issue thing, like you said? Was it maybe they thought it was a pacing issue? Because in my eyes, it looks like a lateral move, pointless. Like, why would you? Because now, if you are worse, I don't think they're going to be able to get much better than they were with Zinni. But now, if you are worse, you can't just bring Zinni back, like bench Insight and then bring Zinni back. That's not how it works.
Yeah, well, so Ian, something you touched on a little bit earlier about this, you said maybe bring Insight in for someone else instead of Zinni. Who would that be for you to have Insight get the most bang for your buck if he is coming in?
Well, so, Katie, the thing is I don't know if Insight is like only a main AR player. I don't know much about him. Obviously, I know he can run the main AR pretty well because they benched Zinni for him and he did his thing. But if he could maybe be a flex player or like the player who's running the QBZ, I would bring him in for one of the other three who isn't playing that well. I mean, I guess, John, you'd probably say Bance has been playing the worst. In my opinion, he's been playing the worst. I really like Cammy and Kleenex as kind of that duo. So, like, if Insight was versatile enough to not have to run a main AR, I think having him and Zinni on the same team would have been more beneficial.
I mean, that's the thing, though. So we know that Zin's just a main AR.
Yeah, Zin's not running nothing else.
But Cammy's been their best player, probably, like, or most impactful, and he's their flex, right? He's the one that pulls out whatever it may be. Do you take him off that role to put Zinni and Insight together? We don't have no idea how that would impact their team and the roles and how good Cammy's been playing. But
it's also one less European. If Zin was on the team.
So the problem being basically, and this is something we talked about previously in other reverse sweep shows, was a lateral move. Great. You made it. You're not necessarily better. You're 0-2 to start stage 2. So we'll have to see what Toronto decides to do moving forward. Do they keep an Inside? Do they try and bring back Zinni? How does that dynamic work? We'll have to wait and see. But another team that's not having the best time, Minnesota 0-2, no wins for them either. And They didn't win a single map, guys. They were 0-2 in the series count, 0-6 in the map count, and I mean, they look terrible. Enable Minnesota. What do you do if you're Minnesota?
I think this one's obvious. Roster change written all over it. It's they're at the point now where they're they've kind of not like rest at S&D, but other teams maybe have gotten better to where they're not super dominant like they were early on to kind of maybe get them through these series. They can't compete with like any team in hardpoint. And I mean in Respawn in general, I think it's a pacing issue.
They're 2-9 in hardpoint now.
I think it's a pacing issue. I've seen Brian say like it's not like we just don't play like how we do in practice.
Practice.
No, like
that's absolute bullshit. I'm sorry.
Like it's clear as day to me that is a serious pacing issue. They have Priesta who's too fast for the rest of the players, so they need to bring someone in to kind of match his pace. Because we had this, he was my loser of the stage or whatever. LVP. He's a superstar, and he's dropping a 0.8 right now. I'm too high on him.
We got to change our terms. We got to change our terms up at this point, to be honest.
But there's no way that he's a 0.8. Like, he's dropping a 0.8. Like, he's a superstar. And from watching...
But there's other things happening there.
Yeah, I just feel like he's getting left out to dry.
Honestly, I just think that they don't mesh, and that sucks to say, and it does happen where you can't really point a finger at someone and say that they're an issue, but as a unit, they don't mesh, and they clearly don't mesh. There's no... I say that whole practice is the bullshit thing, because there's no way. I've never seen it. I've never been on a team where we were winning all our hard points in practice, and then we went to a match and we just can't win one. I've never seen any other team...
Which you forgot how to rotate?
Yeah, like, you're winning in scrims, it translates. It always translates. Like...
It does.
I've seen it the other way around where the teams are struggling more in scrims, and then when they get the matches, they win because people try harder. You turn up, you stop bitching at each other, and you're just playing. But never the other way around. No way. If it was me, Preston honestly is not playing well. But I'll just move into an AR. The problem is they have two other solid main ARs. You just have to make a move. I don't know. We just got to package it up. Got to get in the GM office and. Either Lamar or Major Maniac just has to go.
Has to.
Right. My choice. I just feel like I just know that when the team works, I just know that Lamar he has a way of making it work when the team's on the same page. The team's clearly not on the same page. That could be biased. Whatever. Either way, I don't really care. I just wouldn't drop Preston just because I know of his top end ability, and I would just make him an AR in this game. He's struggling too much, and he just has too much potential to be like a dominant force on your team. So I'd move one of them and try to get like an explosive SMG player from someone, trade them for someone who might need an AR, because Maniac and Accuracy are both players that should be starters in the league. They just need to be in positions that are better for them.
Yeah, so maybe just everything going wrong for Minnesota at this point. A team change, I agree, very likely on the horizon for them. Maybe, role issues, pacing issues, whatever it may be. It's clearly not working for Minnesota, and they're going to need to figure it out fast because they are one of those 4 teams that is at the very bottom when it's coming to those playoff cutoffs. So I know that they have that on their mind. But another team that's down there under the playoff, but had a decent week at least, the London Royal Ravens, guys. They finally won a series. And they did it in fashion. They did it with that 3-0. So congratulations to them. Swept out Gorillas. You have Paul X came in for Parasite and Zed still in for Alex. So Zed had a pretty good performance, at least against Gorillas. And Paul X looked solid, at least from what I saw. Pacman, Ravens, they get their first win. Are you bullish on them? Or is it still like congrats, but you suck?
No. We're gonna give them some time too, just like everyone else. They 3-0'd them. What else could we ask for them? It's something we just had Parasite on one show, and he said playing with Zed was really nice. Actually, Zed came in and was really good at giving everyone information that they needed on the map. It might not be kills or whatever it may be, but he makes it easier for other people to play the game. So maybe that Zed pickup was a lot more important than we thought. They came in, they did not play a strong opponent. They played LAG, but they got the job done, and that's all you could ever ask for. We're gonna have to wait and see how they look against some of the other competition in their group. But I mean, it looks really nice. And Paul X, everyone was so high on this guy at the early stages of the game. maybe he's a big factor for their team. So we'll see.
I mean, yeah, they looked good in that series versus LAG, and I like the fact that Zed is still doing his thing. I don't think you guys know how long Alex is going to be,
No.
not playing, but that's besides the point. Paul X, he didn't have like an unbelievable series by any means, but I felt like you could see the difference in the team, like just the overall play, the pace of the game for them, and it showed. They with the old roster, they would have got probably bodied by LAG. And they looked like the far better team in that series. Now, obviously, it was only one series, but you just got to give them time, like John said. Give Paul X a little time, because it doesn't matter when these guys are hyped up, in the challenger scene. I don't want to be that guy, but like it's a different game when you're in the major leagues. You know what I'm saying? It's a different pace. The players are better. Like you're not shooting against Dashy or Simp in challengers. So give Paul X some time. Give the London Royal Ravens some time, but they might be a team that could actually have some noticeable improvements.
Well, at least they started out, like you said, the best you could possibly ask for was starting your win out with a 3-0, and they were able to do that. So Ravens, maybe they can pick things up. We'll have to see. And I do very briefly, guys, before we get into our MVPs, LVPs for the week, I want to touch on the Inside the Comms drama that happened. CDL released an Inside the Comms. It was a 9-minute YouTube video of all the behind the scenes comms of Optic Chicago and Atlanta FaZe, and the likes of Scump and others, not quite sure why they tweeted it, not very happy about it. They ended up taking it down. So give me your fast hot takes, Enable. When you look at something like that, good thing, bad thing, don't care?
I mean, it's a bad thing. I think when you do those comms, it should be strictly for like comedic relief. How they do the mics in the other sports. You can't like when it gets like really into the shit talk and actual strategy. That's where I think it's like just a little bit too far over the line. And I don't understand, like you could have put that video up, just cut out all that, like cut out all the stuff that shouldn't be in the video. That is pretty obvious in my opinion.
You cut out all the stuff that's obvious strategy talk, and then pre-game hyping their teammates up, saying like whoever the hell they're playing sucks balls and stuff like that. Cut it out. Like they know they're being recorded. Like no, you're in the middle of a match. You're competing. You're not thinking about that at all. Like at all. It should not be included. Now people are like, fans love it. Fans, of course, love it. I love NFL hot mic stuff, but it's never anything that matters. You hear like Green 42. Oh, get him. Let's go.
I don't.
You don't hear anything that actually matters. You never do. But you can still have videos like that, and the fans will still love it, and you don't have to have anything important in them. I don't even know how you make that mistake. That's such an obvious distinction, an obvious line not to cross.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, if you are giving teams an illusion of privacy, you have to respect that illusion of privacy. And if you plan to break it, then you need to at least send the video to those teams and be like, hey, what parts of this video do you want us to remove? Don't just say, hey, you guys, it's private until we decide it's not private and you have no say in the matter. So seems like they might have realized that. We love the Inside the Comms, so maybe they'll figure out what's best to include and what's best not to include. But that definitely caused a stir on social media when it happened. But now to our MVP, most valuable player of the week, the first week of stage 2. Pacman, who do you got to give it to?
I can't say simp again. I just can't. That's just so.
Because that's what I'm so, simp. Simp.
That's just so rude. All right, I'm gonna go with Pristini, because I think that he was getting actually body slammed in the first stage, and then this one he came out and Seattle's looking strong, man. And he came out in the first series and actually completely destroyed Florida, and then they went all the way to the distance with Dallas. I mean, I got to give him props where it's due. He came out and played like a completely different person. Maybe he's not getting mowed down by the XM4 anymore, and he's feeling more comfortable running around the map, learning his pathing and his routes. And Pristini played a lot better. Shout out to him.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, an okay pick. And I would go simp. I would go simp. But since you did and I won't, for me, it has to be Clay. And it's, maybe not. Clay played great. He was a huge reason why they reverse swept LA Thieves also. But I think the biggest thing for me is somehow his old ass is still doing it. He has put together another top team without the tiny terrors, without whatever XEO,
Zio.
whatever shot Zio, yeah, whatever. The kids nowadays, I don't know half this shit. But like he has put together and is leading another top team, and honestly, he's playing some of his best Call of Duty in a long time. So I think it has to be Clay for me. Damn, I hate saying that, but yeah, it's got to be Clay.
All right, well, Chris, Katie, and Clay, the two MVPs for these gentlemen. Now, moment of the week. Maybe it involves those MVPs, maybe it doesn't, but when you look at everything we saw over those 4 days, Enable, was there a moment for you that really stood out? Maybe it was a series, maybe it was a player, maybe it was a specific instant, but what really stuck out to you?
The moment for me that stuck out the most, it probably would have to be the reverse sweep on LA Thieves. I think that, as much as I hate to say it, as much as I don't know, because I'm not in the calls with them, I'm not a part of LA Thieves. Like, I'm not Cap.
Right.
But I feel like that was, what is that famous quote? The straw that broke the camel's back, I think.
Yeah.
For them, I think when they won that series versus Toronto prior, playing horrible, the team was pissed. I know for a fact they were. They did not care that they won. The fact that they looked that bad to a team who had just replaced a player for another one. So they needed to come out hot, and they needed to win versus New York to go 2-0, at least to like relieve the pressure. They started to do that, didn't finish the job, and I feel like that was just like it. Like, I think now they have no faith in each other. So that's why I really think that they're going to have to make a team change, and they will make a team change somehow to just change up the environment.
Pacman, your moment?
I'm actually going to go with Seattle again. They were down 2-0 to Dallas, and then went down 2-0 in the control, and they managed to win their first control against one of the best teams in the game, top 2, top 3, no matter how you look at it. Dallas is disgusting, and for them to get their first control win against them and the way they did, and then extend the series all the way to round 11, I just feel like with how bad Seattle was and how much crap it was to easily talk about them, you gotta give them their props when they turn it around, and I think that win right there was huge, and we saw all of the Seattle Surge actually start to believe in themselves as a team.
They look good.
Yeah, I mean, it was impressive. Yeah, right? Like, you take the second best team in the league all the way to that Game 5, round 11, and exactly, Pacman, they had never won a control until they did against Dallas. So yeah, if you're a team like them, a lot of positives. Yeah, you didn't win, but a lot of positives for them. But not so positive. Unfortunately, we always got to do our LVP of the week, least valuable player. A few folks have been tossed around a couple times. Priesta being one of those. Maybe he'll get brought up again. Who knows? So, Enable, your LVP. Is it still Priesta, or are you switching it up?
LVP for me, Katie. Honestly, I think it's I'm going a little bit different route. I have just all of Minnesota ROKKR. Literally all 4 of them.
Okay.
I don't know if that's allowed, but that's what I'm putting, because this team should not be amongst the worst team in the league. Maybe they are the worst team in the league right now. And the fact that they haven't been able to like even kind of put it together is mind-blowing to me, because they are all talented in their respective roles. You know, they have players that have won in the past, and they just look bad. And it seems like they're not even making any improvements. So they just all get the LVP. All right. So last time it was Priesta, now the whole gang is here.
All right, Pacman.
I
mean, it's hard not to take someone off Minnesota, but I mean, this guy just took the entire roster.
Get smoked. That's how you win that. That's how you win that.
Their entire roster. I don't know. I guess I'm gonna go with can I cheat and do what Ian did and just take an entire team and say LAG for getting it absolutely just handled by London, who hadn't won a series?
No one wants to be the team that loses to the team that won a series.
Yeah.
No, and not just lose. They got
bodied.
Like it was like London looked like a top tier team versus them. That's not how it's supposed to be. And I'm not gonna point fingers at anyone on LAG, because I don't want anyone to get particularly mad. Like, you have no idea what it was like. I'm like, obviously I don't, but you guys still got 3-0'd. Like that's a rough spot to be in when you lose to the previous worst team in the league. You can't even call them that anymore.
Yeah,
in
you
a,
can't.
in a fashion like that. Like they couldn't have had much time to practice with this new roster. They just couldn't have.
No, well, all of Minnesota, all of Gorillas earning the
8
LVPs
LVPs.
for Enable and Pacman. So congratulations on the prestigious honor. We'll see if maybe they can get their way out of that next week. But that'll be it for the reverse sweep review show. A lot that happened in the first week of stage 2 and much more to come as we get farther into the stage and see if there's potential roster changes in the mix for some of these teams. And stay tuned for that because we will be here to cover all of it. Katie Bedford, Pacman, and Enable, we will see you next week.